Episode 3 of the second series of mixing a subscriber's music. Alright, tutorial for you guys to, watch and learn. And this time, we are gonna talk about the drums. If you like this video, like this video. If you dislike this video, give it a dislike. And if you have something to say, a feedback, leave a comment down below. Alright, and the timestamps will be in the description. And once in a while, you guys might want to check out the top right of this video, as I might give a link. It depends on this lesson right here, okay? I might give you the referral link. Okay, anyway, this time we're talking about drums, the drum part of this recording, this mix, alright? So let's just go ahead and turn off the effects, solo the drum section, and let's just leave the master bus and the drum buses plugins on, okay? That's the only thing that will be coloring our mix when it comes to the drums. So here it is. Here it is without all of these plugins that are in each individual drum channels. Okay, here it goes. And here is how it sounds like with all of the plugins here on your individual drum channels. Take a look. Alright, I don't know about you guys, but to my ears, through my headphones, that has a lot more energy to it, okay? Let's go ahead and turn it off again, okay? Let's just turn them off and let you guys hear it. Now let's turn it on. Alright, it's got more life to it, it's got more energy to it. And today we're gonna take a look at how we have achieved, alright, that drum setting, okay? Let's go from our snare. Alright, let's just solo this one out to kind of give it a, let's just compartmentalize this lesson for now. And right now we've grabbed a limiter. Actually, I use here at if you're using FL Studio, you can set it to limiter or compressor, whichever you're using, although you're not turning off one of them. If your sound crosses a certain threshold, if it crosses this ceiling, it'll be limited. So there you have it. It's primarily a limiter, but it has a compressor function. Anyway, my threshold is at negative 5.2 decibels. The highest possible ratio, which is 20:1. Fastest attack and 100 ms release. To avoid with this release setting, we want it's just to avoid every possible distortion, all right, from a limiter, because if I wanted some of the distortion, I might do this on the soft saturation, but I'm not really interested in that. So there you have it. Okay, the purpose of this, Nick and all of you guys who are tuning in, the purpose of this setting, okay, is to control just to make sure that there wouldn't be any signal passing through this maximum threshold. Basically, we've made it so that the maximum threshold that the snare reaches is at a certain point. It doesn't go beyond this threshold. All right, that's pretty much it. So it's actually a soft limiter because of its 20:1 ratio. So there you have it. Anyway, now let's go for our EQ, for our F6 EQ. Alright, I didn't do any high pass filter. As you can see from this chart, we don't have really too much low end going on. We only have a low mid going on here, and that's usually the root note for the snare. So we've gone ahead and boosted some of it, alright, at 194 hertz at the Q factor of 1. And we set it to 6 decibels of gain. Alright, let me solo it for you guys as to what we're actually EQing. So here it goes. okay? So that's what we're working with. All right, that's the root note. That is the tuning of the snare drum. Okay, let's unsolo that and let's turn it off, see if it makes a difference. Let's turn off all of these other plugins as well, just to see what we're actually doing. All right, let's see without this setting. Now let's turn it on. All right, we brought back the low end of it, which contributes to the transient. Okay, it gives your transient that low end. So, well, actually low mid. All right, since usually I don't boost too much low mid, but since this is a snare and it only hits for like a moment, and since that's its root note, I've gone ahead and boosted it so that my snare wouldn't be too thin, you know, and it wouldn't be too low, you know, at the same time, or too bassy, you know, at the same time, if that's even a word. Anyway, you guys get the point, you know. And let's go. Moving on to token number 4. We've got it at 500 hertz, Q factor of 2, and our gain is at -3. I'm doing this cut because I feel like it's not really, I think it doesn't really help with the snare. So let's just solo this one out for you and take a listen as to what we're cutting exactly. Okay, so I really don't want that mid, all right, too much on the snare, so that's why we gave it a cut. It would also allow this one right here to be more pronounced, and all other frequencies that I've boosted here to stand out a little more, which, you know, that being said, you know, I've boosted also 2K on this one here at the Q factor of 1, and the gain is at 4.1 decibels. All right, what this one here is, what you're with the snare, okay, this one here, this sounds like a clap, all right, on the snare. So let's just solo it out for you to see what I mean when I say clap. So here goes. All right, it kind of sounds like a clap, but it's not really a clap because it's a snare drum. But if you solo it, that's what it is, you know. So the purpose of this is to kind of give your snare a little more what do you call that, it gives you that 2K brightness. All right, it's not really the brightest frequency in the frequency spectrum, but what it does is it makes your snare stand out a little more when it gets hit. So let's go ahead and mute that for a sec, and I'll let you guys hear it for yourselves what I'm talking about. So here it is. All right, so now let's put it here. Okay, so that's pretty much what we're doing here. That's why I've gone ahead and boosted 2K, which would then boost everything that is close to 2K. And since we did a boost, now let's move on to token number 6, which brings us to token number 6. That is at 8K, Q factor of 0.6, and the gain is at 6 decibels. All right, and I forgot to put this back to 0. So I want you guys to ignore this section, this one here inside the rectangle. Anyway, the purpose of this setting is to, as maybe you haven't already watched my snare video, which I will be putting it up here, okay, on the top right of this video, okay, just so you guys would be able to see why I did this boost. Okay, anyway, let's go back. What I did with this boost is to brighten up the snare. Okay, that's usually the brightest area of a snare drum. It depends on what mic you've used for recording. It also depends on what kind of snare you're using, what kind of snare heads you're using, what kind of snare wires you're using. It depends on the tuning of the snare drum, all other things, and it depends on, where you've recorded your snare drum. So much factors, and how you positioned your mic. So much factors in the recording. So, that's pretty much it. Let's solo this one out for you guys so that you will see what we're actually working with when it comes to 8K. Here goes. Alright, that's the flick. Alright, that's the snap of a drum, of any drum, including, so if you have since the snare is the lead guy, alright, if you will watch Chris Lord Algie's one of videos on YouTube, you will find out that Chris Lord Algie mentions that the snare is the lead guy besides the lead vocals. All right, so since it's the lead guy, all right, making it a little more snappy will complete the power that it needs, and it will also complement what you did here at token number 2 and token number 5. All right, remember we boosted 194 hertz and 2K, okay, 2000 hertz. All right, we boosted both of those. All right, and we also cut 400, sorry, this is 500 hertz. I think I might have moved it accidentally. We also cut 500 hertz to give way to all these 3 frequencies. All right, that would make our snare more powerful. Okay, it's not gonna sound like you're hitting just a can or anything like that, but you're actually hitting a snare drum. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So that's the EQ section for the snare. Okay, and all these moves would contribute to us having a snare, all right, which would then, if our snare sounds good, it would contribute to our whole drum set sounding good. All right, and if our drums sounds good, then it would contribute to our mix. All right, and if our mix sounds good, our music sounds good. All right, ultimately. Anyway, all right, so that's pretty much it. With the effects send, all right, it's set to, let me go ahead and copy this and see where it's at. So it's at what, 48%. Okay, almost 50% send to the drum effects. So let me go ahead and, what is the drum effects here? So I'm gonna mute the effects for a sec to see what it sounds like without the effects, and to see, so that you guys will see what it sounds like with the effects. Okay, here it goes. Okay, now with the, should I say, you can also call this the fake drum room, since we don't have a room recorded track. We're just gonna make one. It's all fun, it's all good. Here it goes. All right, let's turn it back off again for you guys to see. All right, let's turn it on. All right, so that's pretty much it. Okay, that's what we're adding to the snare. All right, so I'll go to the drum effects settings later. First, I would just discuss the individual tracks and how much is being sent to the drum effects, and then after that, after I've gone through all of these drum settings, I'll go ahead and mention to you guys what I have done to the drum effects. Now let's move on to the kick. All right, let's go back to snare. We haven't even moved on from the snare. Anyway, so now we are on the snare with the threshold setting. This one here is just to EQ what your distortion is distorting. So the threshold is set at 50%. So therefore, this EQ or this distortion, sorry about that, this distortion will only distort 50% of the frequency spectrum. All right, so it's not going to distort the highs, it's just going to distort everything from the low to the low mids to the mid. mid frequencies. All right, that's pretty much it. And I'm not really sure what which frequencies I can pinpoint, but basically what this does is it cleans up your distortion so that it wouldn't be too trashy sounding when it comes to the drums. I don't really want it to be too trashy. So now I have done it with this setting right here. Okay, so let's put it on and let's let it play with the drum effects. All right, actually let's turn it off. Okay, without. Okay, and now let's put it on. So what this does is it brings up the rattle of the snare and it adds. Alright, so the snare already has that snare wires sound because it's a snare drum. Alright, and now what we've done is we've brought up that natural snare sounds, alright, snare wire sound with this distortion, but we're also adding a little more. Okay, hence this threshold settings at 50% and my mix is at 100%. All right, and our mix knob here is at what is this 25%. Okay, so what I've done is basically 25% of the distorted snare is added. All right, and the rest of it, the 75% of the signal, is from the dry snare, from, you know, including all of these processes. Okay, so now that we're doing that, all right, and let's just go ahead and move on to our fruity limiter. All right, actually this distortion, it just adds a little more rattle to it. Okay, as I've chosen the second distortion type, which is distortion type B, which adds a little more rattle to the snare. So I think it's just appropriate to add a little more with this certain type of distortion, because this distortion adds a little more highs to it, high-end distortion. All right, hence why I've set it to 50% of the threshold. All right, so it wouldn't have too much of that rattle. Okay, and also of that mix knob. All right, so that's pretty much it. Now we're gonna move on to our fruity limiter. Again, this is optional, but I do highly recommend this fruity fast distortion. Anyway, with our limiter, okay, all right, it's turned on. Our makeup gain is at 2 decibels plus 2 decibels. Our threshold is at negative 13.5 decibels. Our ratio is at 20:1 as usual, as you guys have already known. And our compression attack time is at 30 ms. Our release time is at 100 ms. All right, so that's pretty much it. Just to compress the snare a little more, because, you know, I mean, you guys didn't see the first part of this song. You guys weren't able to hear it, but it has this quieter sections, so I really didn't want to over compress it, and I just wanted to bring up this quiet sections just a little more by 2 decibels. I don't want it to be really too loud, and that's why I've only compressed it by 2 decibels, which would then, let's go back to our playlist, which would then make it so that this section right here will sound like this section right here. All right, as you have already noticed, this section is a little more consistent. All right, so now, and that's why I've added only 2 decibels of compression. All right, and that's the gain reduction and the makeup gain, just to even things out. All right, just to bring this together with this loud part and this semi-loud part, and so that you would also make this semi-loud part close to this one. All right, so that's pretty much it. That being mentioned, you might remember on our previous video, we have added this compressor right here that will add to the punch of every drum hit. All right, so that's pretty much it. So it's gonna it's the all whatever we did here on the snare is going to add up to what we did on the drum bus, and that's also going to add up to what we did on our master bus. All right, further increasing our punch. All right, and that's called serial compression. All right, when you stack compression over each other, whether it could be compression on the same channel, or compression on multiple channels. You know, it could be one from this channel, the snare channel, and then one from the drum bus, and then another one from our master bus. Okay, which we have done in this mix. All right, so now let's move on to our kick. Now we have our kick over here, and we have EQ'd it so far. We've cut 138 hertz at the Q factor of 2.7, and the gain is at -6. All right, I'm gonna show you guys how it sounds like with this cut without every other plugins, you know, and yeah, just this EQ. All right, let's compartmentalize what we're doing right now in this EQ. Okay, so here goes. All right, we're cutting. It sounds like a heartbeat, but that's not what we're going for, and that's why we are cutting 138 for the kick, so that you will have everything that is not on 138, everything that is not affected, 63, and all that is around 63, everything that is not affected will pop out, or it will be emphasized, you know, because we have that what is that makeup gain over here. All right, so now that we have done that, okay, we have cut this. What this means is that since we've cut this, all right, all other frequencies will stand out. All right, the thing that you have to remember is when you're EQing when it comes to EQing something, all right, when you cut something, when you cut a section of frequencies, all other frequencies will stand out. All right, the ones that are already standing out, as you can see on this graph, will stand out even more. All right, this area right here and this area right here. Okay, but even then, what it will do is it will actually bring up these frequencies just a little more. Okay, depends on the volume level, but then again, you still have to put it in the context of what else have you cut, what else have you boosted. All right, so with the kick, what I'm going for is just the typical punchy kick. All right, and that's why I have boosted 8K at token number 6 with a Q factor of 0.6. all right, and the gain is at 5 decibels. Okay, you already know what this area sounds like, but for the sake of this lesson, I'm going to go ahead and solo for you guys to know what we're actually boosting here. Okay, here it is. Okay, that's pretty much it. Okay, that's what we're boosting. So let's go ahead and play it without the EQ. Okay, now with the EQ. Okay, so now, all right, we haven't even boosted 60, 67 or around this area, but our kick already sounds, you know, a little more bassy. It's got more low end to it because of that makeup gain. All right, so that's pretty much it. Now let's move on to our compressor section. 2 decibels of makeup gain. Threshold is at -14 decibels. Highest ratio possible, 20:1. Soft limiting. Attack time is at 30 ms. Release time is at 100 ms. Okay, this is to enhance the punch for the kick. All right, now let's play it with the EQ and the compressor, because this is how I mixed it. After I EQ'd it, I gave it a compressor, and now you guys will find out where we are going with this one, with this compressor right here. Okay, let's put it with the EQ and compressor. Now here it is. Alright, without the compressor. Alright, now with. It'll make it slightly louder by 2 decibels because you're letting your transients go through. But that's the point, okay? If you think it's becoming too loud, you can adjust your fader volume over here, okay? Now let's move on to our reverb. All right, let's let it play for a second with the reverb first, so that you guys will see what it sounds like with the reverb. Okay, now here it goes. Okay, so that's how it sounds. We turned off our high cut, and our low cut is at 75 hertz. We're cutting down everything that's below 75 hertz. We don't want to reverberate that. All right, room size is at 50, and no other settings touched. So bass multiplier is at 300, which is set to 64 hertz. Everything that is below 64 hertz won't get this boost, but everything that is up until 2K will get that boost, okay, from this reverb. And that's pretty much it. Our decay time is at 0.5 seconds. We don't really want to have it to reverberate too long, so that's why we set it to 0.5 seconds. And our high damping is turned off. You know, everything from 0.5 500 hertz to 22 kilohertz. Yeah, 22,000 hertz, you know, will be played or will be reverberated. All right, so our dry level is at 100, early reflection is at 100, and our wet is at 75. All right, I don't want it to have too much reverb sound, or I don't want the reverb to engulf the dry signal, so that's why I set it to 75%. Although I probably should have put a pre-delay on it if that's the case, but I didn't. So here it is, 75% only. All right, so that's actually a difference of 25% when it comes to volume, you know, on the dry level when you compare dry level and the wet level. So there it goes. Let's go ahead and check out how much I have sent to this one. Let's just copy this. All right, and the setting is at 80% when it comes to the send, okay, when it sends to the drum effects right here. All right, so you guys remember what the drum effects is? If not, you can just go rewind the video. Let's just go ahead and play it with the drum effects. Okay, so that's gonna contribute to the mix. Let's turn off the drum effects. Now let's turn it on. Alright, so it adds a little more bigness to it, you know, thanks to that reverb plugin we've discussed a while ago. Now let's move on to our hi-hat. I swapped the left and right, so since I don't know which way this one was panned. This one was panned 50% to the right, so it's gonna be a little louder on the right, but I flipped it because, you know, preferences, that's why. And now I'm gonna show you what my setting is. It's just a simple compressor right here, 2 decibels of makeup gain. Threshold is at negative 12.8, 20:1 ratio, fastest attack, 100 ms release. Okay, that's pretty much it. I don't want it to be too fast of a compressor, well, when it comes to the release, you know, and I want it to sound a little more consistent. That's why we have that fastest attack. So let's turn off the compressor and see how it goes without it. Let's turn it on. It's slightly louder because that's what compressors do. It makes the we are in the quieter section of this song. You know, yeah, we're in this section right here if you look at my mouse. So obviously you'll see that it's way quieter than when it was over here. All right, so that compressor will help it out even up a little more on this section and on this section. All right, this section will be slightly quieter, and all other sections that are quieter will be a little bit louder. All right, just to bring all of these sections together so that it will help the entire mix. Okay, that's pretty much it. I'm not sending it to the drum effects. I don't really want to reverberate the hi-hat, so that's why. Okay, now let's move on to the HiTom. When this one was sent to me, this one was not in mono, so I turned it into mono and I panned it all the way to the left. All right, and I really don't have any tweaks to it because I don't think it needs it. It already sounds good. I think I'm just gonna hurt it if I add any more effects to it. So let's pan it in the middle so that you guys will hear how it sounds like. Okay, it already sounds good, and I just send it to the drum effects, which is at, I believe, 100%. Nope, it's still at 80%. Okay, anyway, let's see. Yeah, 80%. All right, so now that we've heard what it sounds like, let's just put it back to the left, okay, to where it is originally panned. Now let's move on to our middle tom. All right, our middle tom. Let me show you guys how it sounds like on its own. All right, let's go back to that section. Without the effects. Now with all of the plugins. Alright, now it sounded like you're in a stage playing the drums. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to our EQ. Let me go check if we have done something else. Nope, I've done nothing else. I've boosted 8K at the Q factor of 0.6, alright, by 8 decibels. Alright, I'm gonna show you guys how it sounds like with this boost, or what we're boosting exactly. So we're gonna solo it. Okay, you guys get the point as to what we're boosting. Now let's turn it off, what it sounds like without this boost. Okay, now let's turn it on with this boost. Alright, it brightens it, okay? It makes it sound brighter, alright? Now that we have done this boost, as you may have noticed, it affects 4K, some 16K, and some 2K, alright? Just a little bit of 1K, not a whole lot, compared to 8K, alright? And what this does, it covers 4K and 2K, which are some a little more bright frequencies, and that's why I set the Q factor to 0.6. all right, that's why, because I want to affect 2K and 4K and 16K and everything above, well, at least as far as this EQ can mix. All right, so that's pretty much it. I haven't done anything else. That just with this simple boost, it gave our middle tom a livelier sound. So now let's move on to our fruity limiter, to our compressor rather. 2 decibels of makeup gain. Threshold is at negative 10.2. Ratio is at 20:1. Alright, you guys already know what's going on with the settings. Same settings as usual. Nothing too fancy. Just to glue this to the entirety of the drums and to the entirety of the mix. Alright, and turned it into mono because this was a stereo, you know, and it would be easier to mix and it will have its place in the entirety of the mix. All right, that's why I've turned it into mono. All right, now our send towards the drum effects is set to 60%. All right, and you guys have figured out what's actually going on, so I'm gonna play it. Here it goes. Okay, so that's what's going on. Now let's move on to this the lowest tom to save some time. All right, gain is at 2 decibels. You know, I've put the ceiling up because I've set my compressor threshold to negative 4.5 decibels. Highest ratio 20:1, at least on this plugin. Fastest attack 100 ms release. You already know that. It's just to limit our low tom right here. Okay, let me show you what the low toms are actually doing. All right, because in this section right here, there's that particularly loud section that I wanted to tame, so that's why I've set it the threshold to negative 4.5 decibels. Okay, so let's just play that section for you. Okay, so as you can see, it tames 2 decibels. All right, and it brings the rest of all of these quieter parts to closer to this loudest part. All right, and including the ones that are not the loudest, just to have more consistency. All right, so that's how easy mixing is. But to come up with that with this setting is just to kind of experiment. Let's see if, you know, what I did is I experimented, and you know, let's see what 2 decibels does. All right, let's see what 4 decibels of makeup gain does and gain reduction does. You know, that's pretty much it. So I've ended up with the 2 decibel gain reduction, and makeup gain, because I think that's enough. All right, so, and it's sent to the drum effects by 80% as well. All right, so without the drum effects, just the compressor, see how it sounds. Now with the drum effects, all right, so it sounds in the entire it now fills up you know, the whole room. Well, quote end quote room, which is the drum effects right here. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, we have also panned it all the way to the right, as you may have already noticed. Okay, and we have also turned this mono because this was in stereo. Makes it easier to mix, and makes it so that you will be able to tell where it's going to be placed in the entire mix. Okay, I haven't done anything with the crash tracks. All right, because it's already bright, you know, and yeah, I just these 2 crash tracks, I just made it so that the volume here will be appropriate for the entire mix. That's pretty much it. Okay, now let's move on to the clap tracks. By the way, you guys can check out the gain settings over here on the fader, and if you cannot see it, let me know in the comments down below, and I will leave it in the description. Okay, I usually read comments every day, so yeah, let me know if I made a mistake at the time of this recording if you guys cannot see it. All right, that's my fault in my part, but if you can see it, good. All right, so now let's just move on to our clap tracks. All right, so let's just play the clap tracks for you for a sec. All right, as you may have noticed, I am not sending it to the drum effects or to the drum room because it already has its room coloration to it. So I feel like I don't need it because I want it to sound a little more up close and personal, because it already has that room sound to it, as you may have already noticed. So that's pretty much it. All right, moving on to our EQ at 6K, 6080 Hertz, Q factor of 0.9, and the gain is at 4 decibels. All right, the purpose is to brighten up your claps even more. All right, as you may have already noticed, it is a high shelf. The purpose is to boost everything that is on this shelf. Okay, everything from what is this, 4K upwards. All right, 4K, so that means 4K, 8K, 16K, 22K, everything, etc. All right, everything that this EQ can reach. All right, since we're mixing at 48 kilohertz with the, is that the bit depth or anything like that? Let me know in the comments down below what that is. And so therefore we can reach up until 22K, and that's pretty much it. All right, that's what we are working with. All right, so let's turn off this. Let's solo it for you as to what we're actually boosting on the clap. Turn off the compressor. Here it is. All right, now let's turn it off and then turn it back on to see the change that we have made. All right, in this EQ. Here it goes. Pretty standard. Now let's turn it on. All right, so it makes it sound brighter and more exciting a little more with this small boost right here. And that's pretty much it. All right, I think that's all I've done. Now let's move on to our limiter right here. Makeup gain is at 4 decibels. Threshold is at negative 26.2 decibels. I know I probably should have brought up the gain a little more so that we don't have to set the threshold too low, but maybe I forgot about it. So if you're mixing this, all right, don't forget to gain stage this. I probably have forgotten about it, so I apologize, as that's my mistake on that part. Anyway, let's just go ahead and move on. Our ratio is at 20:1. Fastest attack, you already know what's going on. 100 ms release, all right? And let's just play it without the compressor, and let's play it with the compressor. Here it goes. With the compressor. All right, it gives it a little more energy. It brings up those quiet harmonics, and it makes it a little louder. Well, at least that's the perceived loudness, but in actuality, our peak is still the same. So let's confirm that. Negative 15 decibels is the peak without the compressor. Now let's put on the compressor, see what it sounds like with the compressor. See our peak right here on the left. All right, pay attention. So slightly louder, so that's what, 13 decibels. All right, it makes it a little louder, you know, but then again, if it's too loud, I mix this fader in the context of the entire mix, so that's why I didn't bring it down. It sounded good without having to bring it down. Okay, that's it for our claps. Now for our final drum channel, which is the fake room drum effects. All right, I've set the low cut to 244 hertz, meaning everything below 244 hertz will be cut, and the high cut is off. We're not turning off 500 hertz, meaning everything from 500 hertz to 22 kilohertz will be played, will be displayed. All right, in the reverb, or that will actually reverberate. All right, now I've set the pre-delay to 41 ms. All right, the room size is at 100%, the biggest room size. Bass multiplier is at 100. I didn't touch it. Crossover is at 500 hertz. You know, pretty standard setting. I think I didn't really pay too much attention to it, so that's pretty much it. That's what it is. Our decay time is at 0.5 seconds. Our high damping is at 4 kilohertz, meaning everything from 4 kilohertz up until 22 kilohertz will be damped. Alright, as I don't really want my reverb to reverberate too much of those high cut. Alright, I don't want it to be too long. It will still be reverberated, but you know, it will be damped as you know, this sounds. You know, it kind of makes your reverb, actually it makes your reverb less harsh. So that's why I made that setting, because I really don't want my reverb to, you know, be too bright, and I just wanted to have that right amount of low end, well actually low mid, and you know, everything that, you know, is sent by this high cut. All right, so now I've turned off the dry signal because I want these drums to just have that room sound. All right, this is just the room sound. All right, without the dry signal from all of these drums, or all the drums that are connected or that are sent to this drum effects bus. All right, so our early reflection setting is at 100%, and our wet level is at 100%. All right, that's where it brought us. All right, so that's why we've turned off the dry signal. Anyway, for a short recap as to what we have done, all right, I'm gonna unmute all the rest of the tracks, and I'm going to unmute, and the plugins are all unmuted. And just for a review as to what this sounded like, let's turn off all of these plugins and let the drums play. All right, let's let it play. All right, let's get to this section right here. All right, so now let's put all of the plugins. Let's put all of the excitement in. All right, here it goes. All right, so that's how it sounds like with the entirety of the track of the drums. All right, if you have made it to the end of this video, congratulations, you are a patient viewer. All right, for all of you guys, I hope you have learned from this lesson, and I hope that you will be able to take something in the bag. All right, and as for you, Nick, that's how you're gonna mix your drums. All right, if you want to reach the sound that I have mixed. All right, and if you guys don't know, our reference track is American Idiot from Green Day, and you already know what Green Day is, and also Lonely Nation from Switchfoot. All right, so there it is. Again, like this video if you liked it, and dislike it if you disliked it. Leave your comments down below. All right, if outrageous producing can improve in some aspects, and you know, if you think that outrageous producing is doing a poor job, let me know, and if it's doing a good job, let me know as well. Your comments are highly appreciated. We read your comments, and if you're over here, you are a subscriber. All right, you have the opportunity to have your music mixed just like this one, so that we will reach. All right, here at Outrageous Producing, we take your music and we mix it according to your sonic preference, according to your reference tracks. All right, maybe it's your favorite artist. All right, it depends on you. All right, we take it and we show it here on YouTube how you can do that to your own mix, so that you know, you will make it sound closer to your reference track. All right, you take it to your house, and then you copy what we have done. Now, if you have a better method on how to do it, by all means, you guys can let me know in the comments down below, or even a response video. All right, so yeah, all of us here in the music industry will benefit from people having different moves. All right, having different perspectives, you know, so that's always beautiful. All right, that's always welcome here. All right, you guys have a wonderful day, and happy mixing, and God bless. Take care.